All right, we're still going to do some factoring, but this factoring is a little bit more complicated than what we did earlier. Like I said, the ones that you just did last night, all the coefficients of the x squared term. Now, what does that mean? I'm saying a lot of words. I don't want you to just glaze over. Think about what I'm saying. The coefficient of the x squared term. So the number in front of the x squared, exactly. All right, so the number in front of the x squared on that lesson I gave you last night was all 1, correct? All right, so this time it's not going to be a 1. It's going to be a little bit different. So we have to think a little bit more on this. So here we go. It's 4x squared minus 11x plus 6. Okay, and we're going to factor. Looks similar to what you did last night, isn't it? Doesn't it? Yeah, except you got a 4 out in front of the x squared. So it's not quite the same, but it is a trinomial. You do have an x squared, an x, and a constant, right? And we want to factor this thing. So what's the first thing we're going to write down? Parentheses, okay? Now I'm going to show you 2 ways to do it. I've debated whether I should show you 2 ways or not. We'll see if you want to use both ways or not. But let's do it this way. All right, now remember, this times this has to equal what? Remember, this is backwards FOIL method. Agreed? So it's FOIL. First, outside, inside, last. So the first ones, this one and this one, have to multiply to become what? What is it? Something x squared? Not just something, but what? 4x squared. That's right. It's got to be this, right? If I had numbers in here and I multiplied them together, then this times this would equal this thing right here. Agreed? Well, we got a couple options though, don't we? It could be 2 and 2. It could be 4 and 1, right? With the x, okay, just make it easy. 2 and 2, or 4 and 1, or 1 and 4, right? On this, it's going to make a difference what order you put them in. So you got a couple options. So what we're going to do, I've seen some books say this is like trial and error, okay? So we just try some things and see what works. If it doesn't, try something else. Right? I remember doing this in high school. This is the way I was taught. Even in college, I think when we factor stuff like this, they would say just try some things and see what works, and if it doesn't work, try something else. Right? But there's another method we're going to show you after this that's a little more surefire. It works just about every time. There's a few more steps. Some people just would rather do it this way. So would you say, what do you think? This times this has to equal 4x squared. So what do you want to try? 2x? Okay, so try 2x and a 2x. All right, now the last. Let's go, forget the inside, the outside and inside right now. Let's just look at the last. So this one, let's do the signs, by the way. They have to multiply to be positive and add up to be negative. They've got to be both negatives. So that's what I would do right off the bat. You understand that? They can't be both positives because when you add them up, you can't get a negative if I add 2 positives together, can you? All right? They can't be 1 positive and 1 negative because if it was, then this would be minus, right? So they have to be both negatives. Negative times negative is positive, and then negative plus negative is negative. You got it? Okay, so we got our signs. Now what about 6? We have a couple different options with 6. This times this has to equal 6. Agreed? So we got a couple options with that. We got 2 and 3. We got 1 and 6, or 6 and 1. Okay? Which one do you want to pick? Again, there's really no like super trick to this. You just pick one. 6 and 1? Okay, 6 and 1. So we'll put 6 and 1 right here. Now we have to check to see if this actually multiplies to be this. All right, because it doesn't necessarily. Just because the first multiplies to be this and the last multiplies to be this, what has to happen with that outside and inside? If you multiply the outside, multiply the inside, then add them up, it's got to be negative 11x. It's not just negative 6 plus negative 1 has to be negative 11. All right? Like you did earlier. You got to take a look at all 4 terms, or all 4 of these things. The first, the outside, the inside, and the last. Okay, so watch. I'm going to go outside and inside. What's the outside? Negative 2x. What's the inside? Negative 8x. What's negative 2x minus 8x? That's, no it's not. It's negative 10x. Okay, learn your rules. So, I'm sorry, but it's an Algebra 1 principle, okay? I get a little frustrated with that. You got to learn how to multiply those, or how to add those together. I apologize for being rude, but this is something you should have learned in 9th grade. All right, so watch. Does it multiply, or does it add up to be negative 11x? No, it doesn't. So we're going to have to change something. Now, we got 2 things we could possibly change. You could change the 2's to 4 and 1, right? Or you could change the 6 and the 1 to a what? a 3 and a 2, right? Or you could just change one, or you could just change the other, or you could just change both of them. We got options, don't we? And that's why it's trial and error. You got to keep trying until it works out. All right, so let's try another. Let's try another shot at it. Now, sometimes if I have a pencil, I'll erase these and just try some things again, but I'm going to show you every different possibility. Now, sometimes you might guess and get it right the first time. You don't have to go through a whole bunch of chances, okay? You might just get lucky and say, oh, I guessed the right thing and it worked out perfect. Boom, I can go on to the next one. Sometimes it's really, really quick. Sometimes you're like, oh, try this, that didn't work. Try something else. Oh, that doesn't work. Try something else. Oh, finally, got it to work. You know what I mean? So let's do this. You want to keep the 2 and 2, or do you want to change that to 4 and 1? 4 and 1? Okay. So 4x and 1x. Do you want to keep this 6 and 1, or do you want to change those as well? You want to keep it? Okay. So negative 6 minus 1. They still multiply to be 4x squared, and they still multiply to be positive 6, don't they? All right. What did I do?
No, that's 1.
I know. That's what I said. 4 times 1 is 4. Right? Okay, that's I did that for a reason. 4 times 1 is 4. Negative 6 times negative 1 is positive 6, correct? So we only change one thing. Let's see if the outside and inside add up to be negative 11. And you should be able to just do that in your head. What is that? That's negative 4 minus 6. That's still a negative 10x, isn't it? All right? So that doesn't work. So we got to try something else. All right? Well, we changed the 4 and the 1, didn't we? Let's go ahead and change instead of 6 and 1, let's change it to 3 and 2. So watch, 3 and 2. Are you with me? So let's try and see if that works. So we know that the first and the last will always work. It's the outside and inside. So what's the outside? Negative what? Negative 8x, right? Or negative 8. What's the inside? Negative 3. What's negative 8 minus 3? It's negative 11. Oh, that works, doesn't it? That gives me my middle term. So that is now factored. Kind of a pain, because at first you may make a mistake, not really a mistake, I should say, but you don't get it to work the first time, you don't get it to work the second time. Look, what if I would have done this? What if I would have said, let's get rid of that. You said 3 and 2, right? But what if you tried 2 and 3? Oops. It's supposed to be a 2. Okay, watch. What if you put 2 and 3 instead of 3 and 2? Even though they're the same exact numbers, watch the difference. What's the outside? Negative 12x, right? 4 times negative 3. Then what's the inside? Minus 2x. What's negative 12 minus 2? It's negative 14. All right, that doesn't work, does it? Even though we use the same numbers, so it definitely matters what order you go in, doesn't it? All right, so that 3 had to go here for it to work. Tell you what, let's say we guessed that the first time. So what do you have to do? You got to try something else. You got to try here's your 4x and your x. They're both going to be minus. Let's try 3 and 2 and see if that works. Watch the quick check. The quick check is this. Take the outside, negative 8, the inside, negative 3. That's negative 11. Does it work? Yes, it does. And so that's our answer. Okay? It's trial and error. Sometimes you might have just got lucky, right? You guys said, hey, let's try 2 and 2. What if you said originally, hey, let's try 4 and 1, right? And I think somebody actually did say 4 and 1, and we could have picked that. And instead of saying 6 and 1, maybe you picked 3 and 2. You might have got lucky and just picked it the first time. Do you see that? But you got to keep trying until you get the right combination to make the first multiply to be to this, the last ones right here multiply to be this, and then the outside and the inside add up together to become the middle number. All right? Once you get that to happen, then it's factored. Then it works. So this equals this, doesn't it? Okay. Does that make any sense? Let's try another one like this before I show you the other method. Is that all right?
Have any like that?
No. All right, here we go. Here's another one. Let's try it together, and then I'll give you another one to try by yourself. All right, so what do? Put the parentheses, right? And we just try. Here again, we got a 6. This times this has to equal 6. We've got a couple options, don't we? We have 6 times 1. We have 3 times 2. What are you going to pick? 6 and 1 again? Okay.
Please excuse me.
Now you only... All right, so we tried 6 and 1. Let's do the signs now. right? This times this has to be negative, and when you add the outside and inside together, it has to be negative. That's right. One's going to be negative, one's going to be positive. Where do you want it? Negative first? That's fine. We can go negative first. Negative first and positive second. All right. It's up to you. Again, that's another choice you have to make. Are you going to put the positive first or the negative first? You really don't know. You're right. You got a lot of options here, don't you? But with 5, you don't have a whole lot of options with 5, though, do you? Makes it nice. You actually have 2 options. What do you have? 1 and 5 or 5 and 1, and it will make a difference one way or the other, won't it? Okay, so which one do you want to go? I'll leave it completely up to you. 1 and 5? Okay, 1 and 5. All right, so now, there's where we start. Let's see if it works. So how do we know if it works? We already figured out that 6x times x is 6x squared. Negative 5 times positive 5 is negative 1, times positive 5 is negative 5, right? What's the main thing here? The outside and the inside, right? So the outside is what? Positive 30. And the inside is, when you multiply those together, it's negative 1, isn't it? Is that going to give you negative 7? No. So we got to try something else. All right, so now again, if I was to actually do this and I was doing this in pencil, I'd probably erase these things and do it again. Or if you just want to do them, because sometimes if you erase it, you might try something that you've already attempted, and you're like, oh, I forgot I already tried that one, and then you just wasted time. So it might be a good idea. It's a little extra writing, but it might be a good idea just to keep writing all your options down, right? So what do you want to change now? Do you want to 2 and 3 or 3 and 2? Which one do you want to do? 2 and 3? All right. Jude is very adamant about that, so we'll go 2 and 3. It's still going to be same signs, but one's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. Do you want to keep it negative, positive? Okay. Negative, positive. And then what do you want to try now? 1 and 5? All right. So we only changed one thing, right? It's probably a good thing. I don't know. You ever take a science class and they say if you're going to change an experiment, you don't change like one variable at a time, because then you don't know what caused your solution. You know what I mean? If you try 2 or 3 things, you're like, oh, was it that or was it that? So you only do one thing at a time. Same kind of thing here, I guess. All right, let's see if it works. Well, you know that 6x squared, you know that's negative 5. Let's try the outside inside. So the outside is 10. Okay, 10x, right? I'm just doing the variable or the coefficients. What's the inside? We're close. That's positive 7, right? But we want negative 7. Yeah, okay, that's a good idea. So switch the signs. I'll tell you what, I almost erased it. So let's switch the signs. Keep that the same, keep that the same, keep that, keep that. Now let's switch the signs, see if that makes any difference. Let's make that plus and that negative. Now look, that's still 6x squared, and that's still negative 5, isn't it? Right? It's just the outside and inside changes. So watch, what do we get? Negative 10, what? Plus 3, what's that? That's negative 7. That works, doesn't it? And there you go. Took you a little extra time compared to the ones you did last night, but you can kind of see how that works out. You okay with that? All right. Let's go to the next video, and I'm going to show you a different method to do these things. And you can choose. You can do it like this if you want to, or the way that I show you later in the next video. You can try that as well. All right.